Hello, good day, everyone, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all to the paper Advanced Performance Management, popularly called APM. My name is Jonathan, and I'll be guiding you through on wrapping you around the introduction to the course. So I'm Jonathan Ike Ulumba. I'm the course leader for the paper Advanced Performance Management here at Ivyleague Associate. I'll be introducing you to the paper and speaking to certain fundamental concepts, that I expect of everyone, to sort of acquaint yourself with, in sitting and preparing for this paper. And just to state that the Advanced Performance Management paper, it's the most strategic, in a long series of focus areas around management accounting. So it builds up on certain lower level papers, along the path in management accounting. So you first of all, at the fundamental level, have to go through management accounting. And then after that, you go through performance management. And then finally, you get to the advanced performance management. So to be clear, advanced performance management is a strategic professional paper which builds on the learnings that is expected from everyone at the applied knowledge level. So it sort of builds its way, progressively. Start at applied knowledge, you do management accounting, then at the applied skill level, you do performance management, then at the strategic level, you do advanced performance management. So it's one of the optional papers, that candidates can, decide to opt in for, as part of your journey in the ACCA qualification. So side by side APM, there's a course that neatly, lends itself, directly has a core relationship with advanced performance management. And oftentimes, it's very common to see students, have a complement of wanting to take both papers simultaneously, because there's some knowledge that you find across both papers, that sort of makes it very complementary for a student in terms of their preparation. And that paper is strategic business leader. And just to show you some of the relationship that does exist. So the first section in advanced performance management, which I'm going to speak to very soon, is titled strategic planning and control. And that's a direct relationship to what you find in SBL. There's actually one of the modules in SBL called strategy, which also has certain topics around strategic planning, strategic control, and even performance measurement and performance management, which sits at the core of APM. So I wanted to start by showing you that. So how should you approach as a candidate, advanced performance management? So the big picture really is that you will be an advisor to an organization and really having a strategic view around how the organization understands its purpose and then how it ensures that it achieves its purpose and its objective largely, ultimately at the end of the day. So really the big picture is that you will approach this exam, from that prism or through the lens of a strategic, management advisor. That's really what will be happening. Part of the core skills that you'll be taught in this paper would, include skills around evaluation, assessment, recommendation. You'll be making responses or making a justification, or perhaps even advising an organization on critical areas around the performance measurement and performance management. So this is the relationship. At the applied knowledge stage, you should have understood all the skill sets, and relevant for understanding, the core in management accounting. It builds itself upward at the applied skill level where you learn a bit more other than just what you learned in management accounting. So you cover topics of management accounting like budgeting, you cover topics around decision making, you cover topics around even pure performance measurement, right? Now, but there are additional new knowledge that is quite very, very unique to advanced performance management. And that includes, concepts like SWOT, concepts like the Porter five forces, even the Porter's generic strategies, BCG, which is popularly called the Boston Consortium Group. So they have a matrix or a model which we use for analyzing portfolios and products. We call it the BCG matrix for analyzing, corporate portfolio and product management. So you also have, environmental analytical tools like PEST, PEST standing for political, economic, social, and technological. You have the McKinsey 7S model, which directly is a model we use for looking at how value is integrated, within the business, structured along the lines of, the soft skills and then also looking along the hard skills as well too. We have the soft S and we have the hard S. Then you've got, pure performance management, models, around things we call business process reengineering, which is just generally, taking a holistic view on how, critical business processes can be re-engineered, to be able to achieve quantum improvements in the performance objective and also in attaining the performance targets set by the organization. And then quite a lot is covered around technology. So we're going to look at things like, how do we leverage of cloud technologies, to be able to ensure that organizations can then, optimize or sort of reduce their overall operating costs. Lean systems are also very relevant and which we'll be covering in APM. And the thing with lean systems is that these are systems, where the organization is really focused on how, to eliminate wastage within the system. So for example, you don't want to have in a lean system, or a good example of a lean systems are systems where you don't necessarily have to duplicate efforts, you don't have to duplicate results. So reports are directly targeted at people based on their role rather than, just a generic free for all, access to a report on the system. There are some advanced performance measurement techniques or performance measurement tools like EVA standing for economic value added, which is quite very contemporary. If you're going to be taking this paper, it's one of the most news, that we're going to recommend for you. Other techniques we include Kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese term for continuous improvement. And the bigger picture is that as part of managing the performance in an organization, organizations seek to ensure that their performance management and measurement models, go through continuous improvement. It's not a static approach. So there will quite be a lot of improvements that will go on in those systems. And obviously Six Sigma is also one of those techniques. And the thing with Six Sigma is just basically using statistical means, of analyzing areas for performance improvement within an organization. So that's largely, the view when we approach performance, advanced performance management, is really understanding really what is the core, around what an organization wants to achieve, which is really strategic objectives. And then what are the various models, the various tools, that it should be deployed, if organizations must meet those broad objectives. So you really have to, always wear that mindset that this is a strategic professional paper. And as such, you've got to stay focused on the key critical strategic issues, what is important for planning and controlling performance, so that the strategic objectives can be monitored, can be controlled, right? And something around this paper is also the recognition or the awareness of external factors, that can impact upon, the attainment of those performance management objectives. All right. So there are quite a lot of management accounting techniques, but the strategic ones that will be discussed over the duration of the course. So my advice for every candidate who wants to do well in this paper is to take the following approach. We will guide you over time in our class, to cover the syllabus, but we'll focus on critical areas, right? Based on analysis and our assessments of the key focus areas, for the examiner. So we'll do that. And I also want you to know that this is really an applied course, right? So one of the things that distincts APM from quite a lot of other papers you would find, and it's quite common with strategic professional papers, is the fact that the examiner wants you to do more of application rather than demonstrating rote knowledge. So more application, so knowledge is almost given, right, at this stage, right, but more application. In fact, I'll give you an analysis, right? So most of the questions in APM, and I give a percentage, 70% is really based on application of the fundamental knowledge. Then you might find something in the region of 30% for pure theoretical questions or pure knowledge questions. So the big picture really is more application right here. So demonstrate your knowledge by applying it to the scenario. That's a critical thing we're going to be testing and developing that skill set, across the duration of the course. Then we're going to focus a lot on question practice. And a very important thing to do well in APM is to make sure that we're answering the question directly, that the examiner has posed to us. A big temptation in this paper is to sort of have a vague response. So you must make sure that you, and that's something we'll be guiding you as a faculty, to make sure that you're underlining the key terms or the key verbs, if you like to use the term, in the question, and we stay focused on that. And then finally, I'd like that, as much as I said this is about application, but more importantly is that, in the application, we must demonstrate that, the advice, our commentaries should be one where value is being shared, so there has to be value, in the responses that we give, so that's really how to look at, so these are very, four very germane things that I see that are very, very relevant to this paper. So let me give you an overview of the way the syllabus is structured. So there are 5 broad technical content within the syllabus, so there's a 6th one, right? And the 6th one really is around employability and technology skills, which is really around understanding the computer-based platform, and being able to demonstrate your proficiency with the computer-based platform. But the technical skills are the 5 doors, I have here. So the first one is on strategic planning. And this really starts by, an understanding of really what organizations are all about, right? So organizations are set up for a purpose. And in achieving those purposes, that's where elements of strategic planning will come in, right? So how you set these strategies, how you ensure that these strategies are reviewed optimally, and also how you also ensure that the strategies, there'll be mechanisms and control procedures to ensure that those strategies are realized ultimately, right? With the bigger picture being that the organization achieves their big brand objective and, strategic direction. So that's it. So we'll be covering a lot of strategic planning models. And this is one area in the syllabus where it's directly very complementary with SBL. So quite a lot of the models that will be covered in the strategic business leader course are also repeated here. So models like the pest analysis are covered in this part of the syllabus. Models like the BCG matrix, which we saw earlier, is covered in this syllabus. Models like SWOT analysis is also covered in this part. You even have models like the balance scorecard is also covered in this area of the syllabus, right? And also tying into here with things around budgeting, because an essential control tool for most organizations, especially from the prism of the financial controls, is really the use of budgets and the variance analysis in there. So those things are covered in this part of the syllabus. Another fundamental part of what is covered in this part of the syllabus is business integration and business structures. Because if we really would look at strategic planning, it ties in neatly to the structure, the operating models, of these organizations. So the operating models and how then the business value really is now being sort of, planned to be delivered. So we're going to cover things like business integration and business structure in this part of the syllabus. And then also things around, business process engineering, which we call BPR, is also covered in this part of the syllabus. The section B of the syllabus deals on an understanding of the external issues that can affect organizational performance. And the syllabus keeps it closely to 2 broad areas, understanding the impact that risk and uncertainty can have on the performance, whether it's the performance, actual performance, or even in the planning of the performance targets, for an organization. So critical things around the types of risk that can affect an organization will be covered. We'd also look at decision-making criterion, right? In situations where risk and uncertainty do exist. We'll also be looking at things around the risk capacity in any organization, the risk appetite in any organization, understanding the stakeholders and what sort of risk appetite, do the stakeholders have. And something fundamental here is to make that distinction around what is risk, and what is an uncertainty, and then how do you then make decisions, or what sort of guides the decisions that strategic managers will make in situations where there are risk and where there's uncertainty. And the broad difference around risk and uncertainty really is looks around, the ability to assign probabilities to the unknowns, or the possible scenarios that could pop up. So that's really what determines what risk is and what uncertainty is. Another critical aspect of the syllabus is section C. And the thing with section C is that's directly looking at technology. And what role do technology play in the performance, setting, the performance attainment, the objective realization in an organization? So two broad roles. One role is to understand that, we've got to make very huge investments in good performance measurement and management information systems. So what kind of systems, are we going to be looking at? So the syllabus puts a strong focus on enterprise resource planning systems, which are systems that allow for an end-to-end sort of understanding of what the organization needs to do, how they gather data, how they measure this data, how this data is being shared, across the various parts of the organization, and how ultimately that data can be used to then have a total or a holistic understanding of the performance within the organization. That's a broad thing that's been covered. Then also the design of these systems, what comes in, should these systems be lean systems, the sources of information that comes into the system, external source of information, of performance information, internal sources of performance information, so those sort of things are being covered in this part of the syllabus. Another interesting aspect of the syllabus, which is the second part of section C, is on the development in technology. So things around robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, right? We cover them here, even things around cybersecurity, because those things have a direct relationship to performance management, right? So optimizing those technologies, I spoke about cloud technology in the previous slide, so optimizing the use of those technologies for every organization, can be very germane, in to achieving, your objective as an organization. So these are the sort of interactions and conversations that we'll be having in under the section C part of the syllabus. Section D, which is the very fundamental part, and I use the term fundamental because this is really 40% of the syllabus. This is where we are now focused on the actual performance measurement of the organization. And so this part of the syllabus is broken into different areas. We will look at how we measure performance in purely commercial oriented organizations, how we measure performance in public sector organizations, how performance is measured in not-for-profit organizations, how performance is measured in service-based organizations, right? How performance is measured in e-commerce or electronic or online-based businesses. Also looking at the role of quality, how does quality tie into performance management? And also looking at how HR is such a very critical aspect of performance management. So these are the sort of interactions and conversations that, we're going to be having in section C of the syllabus. Then the final part of the syllabus is around how to predict, and sort of prevent, organizations from failing. So we're going to be looking at, performance evaluation and corporate failure. And we're going to be looking at various models that organizations can deploy in predicting and preventing corporate failure. So we're going to be looking at models, like quantitative means of predicting when firms can fail. We'll look at qualitative methods as well, which is really largely drawing in on experience or setting critical indicators, right, to be able to tell if an organization stands a risk, of failing. Then obviously that then ties into, alternative means, or newer models in which we can now deploy to measuring and managing performance, which is where performance evaluation comes in, right? So we look at models like, I've already mentioned the balance scorecard, but we'll visit again in this part of the syllabus. We'd also look at models like the building block. We'd look at models like the performance pyramid. We look at even, very contemporary models like, value-based management. We look at models like activity-based management. And then that ties up, the core technical side of the syllabus. And then finally, we're going to introduce you all to the CB platform, how to use those platforms to attempt questions, to practice questions, and because these are critical employability tools and techniques. So in a snapshot, that is it about advanced performance management. And we're going to take in a lot of details in the class, and sort of help you, to appreciate what really should be covered in this course. So let me just wrap up by saying that we'll cover some of the very common mistakes, identified by examiners, as we go through our question practice. We'd also, put a lot of emphasis, on the mock exams and how that will help you in doing well in your exams, and sort of show you the relationship, across, both the fundamental level papers and also directly and with APM and, any other paper that is quite very, instrumental to APM, right? And then lastly, we're going to point you to quite a lot of very useful models and technical articles that I think will be very, very important, for a candidate, right? So I'll take you to articles like the technical articles on the ACCA website. We'll discuss the study support guide. There are quite some relevant documents that we're going to share with you in class. And then obviously will be a lot of focus on past questions, and then we'll look at the examiner's report. So thank you. That was it for APM. I consider it a very, very interesting paper. And welcome, and we can't wait to have you, go through this journey with us at Ivyleague. Thank you so much.